So I want you to start by just closing your eyes for a second and visualizing a presentation slide.
A very specific kind of slide, yeah.
Right. Imagine just a pure, pristine white canvas, like absolute hex code FFFFFF.
Right. No distracting background.
Exactly. No stock photos, no, those gaudy 3D graphics or loud gradients you see in corporate decks.
Just completely minimalist.
Yeah, just stark minimalist academia. You've got this crisp navy blue and premium gray text.
And arrows?
Oh, yeah, the arrows. You have this massive, bold, smooth red arrow pointing sharply upward. And maybe some red minimalist dashed circles highlighting specific numbers.
Because that visual minimalism, that stripping away of all the noise, is exactly how we need to look at today's topic.
It really is. We are doing a deep dive into what we're calling the Andorra model.
Which is, frankly, a miracle of resilience and development.
Yeah, between the years 2000 and 2023, we are looking at this microstate's ultimate stress test.
And we have a whole stack of raw data sets to get through.
We do. We're talking the Human Development Index, the Gender Inequality Index, planetary pressures, all structured like this masterclass presentation deck.
Right. And we're looking for pure, undistorted data.
So here is the central mystery, right? The anomaly that hooked us. In 2020, Andorra suffered just this brutal, worst-on-record drop in human development.
It was catastrophic.
I mean, they plummeted down to 48th in the global rankings. Just fell off a cliff.
Yeah. Their HDI dropped to 0.851.
But then, just 3 years later, they didn't just bounce back. They absolutely shattered their own historical ceiling.
They leaped 15 spots.
Right. Up to 33rd globally. They hit a record-breaking HDI score of 0.913.
And that puts them firmly in the absolute top tier of highly developed nations.
So our mission today, with you listening, is to decode this Andorra miracle.
And we're going to break it down into three main pillars to really understand it.
Okay, lay those out for us.
Well, first, we have to look at the extreme V-shaped economic and health rebound.
The bounce back.
Right. Second, we're going to look at their aggressive elimination of systemic inequalities.
It's just huge.
It is. And third, we're looking at the holy grail of modern development, which is economic growth that is perfectly decoupled from carbon emissions.
A completely green overshoot. It's wild. But to understand the height of that 2023 peak, I think we first have to really measure the depth of the valley they fell into.
Absolutely. You can't appreciate the recovery without understanding the crash.
So picture a new slide. This is a minimalist area chart spanning 24 years.
From 2000 to 2023.
Yeah. And from the year 2000, they start with a really solid Human Development Index score of 0.825.
Which is already very good.
Right. And they enjoy the steady, slow climbs, marching upward for almost 2 decades.
Building that stability.
Exactly. By 2019, they reached 0.876. Everything is looking great.
And then the 2020 pressure test hits.
Boom. A massive vertical dashed red line on our chart. The HDI crashes back down to 0.851.
Which wipes out over a decade of progress in a single year.
Right, and we have to emphasize, this wasn't just, a statistical glitch or some minor correction.
No, this was a brutal societal shock.
Let's break down the specific damage because the numbers are staggering.
Yeah, let's look at the wealth and health components. In 2019, the gross national income, or GNI per capita, was over $63,200.
A very wealthy population.
But in 2020, that shrank down to roughly $55,488.
Wow. I mean, that is a 12% drop. That's a massive amount of personal wealth just vaporizing.
It is. But the health data is honestly even more shocking.
Yeah, talk about the life expectancy drop.
So Andorra is known globally for longevity, right? In 2019, their life expectancy was 84.09 years.
People live a very long time there.
But in 2020, that suffered a literal cliff edge drop. It went down to 79.41 years.
Wait, so that's nearly a 5-year wipeout?
A 4.6-year drop in life expectancy, yes, in a single year.
Due to the massive global health crisis. I mean, we represent this on the chart with 2 thick, downward-pointing red arrows.
One pointing to the income loss, one to the life expectancy loss.
Right. It's just a grim picture. So moving to the next visual, I want you to imagine a dumbbell chart.
Oh, I love dumbbell charts for this kind of data.
They're great, right. So on the left side, you have this dot representing the extreme lows of 2020.
The valley.
And on the right side, you have a dot representing the highs of 2023. And connecting them is this thick, right-facing red arrow.
Showing the speed of the repair.
But, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go ahead.
Isn't a rebound naturally expected after a global crisis? I mean, lockdowns lift, people go back to work. What makes this specific rebound so special?
Well, A rebound is normal, sure, you expect numbers to tick back up.
Right.
But an overshoot of this magnitude, that is extraordinary. We're not just talking about getting back to
I had
normal.
gone past normal.
Exactly. By 2023, that gross national income didn't just recover to $63,000. It surged to an all-time high of $64,631.
Oh, wow. So they were objectively richer than before the crash.
Yes, and that life expectancy. It snapped right back to 84.04 years.
Instantly returning them to the ranks of the world's longest living nations.
Precisely. It's the sheer speed of this repair that defines true resilience. They didn't just heal, they upgraded.
So how does a country losing wealth and life expectancy avoid a total systemic collapse?
Well, we have to look at the one metric that absolutely refused to sink during all of this.
Right. Let's look at slide 5 in our conceptual presentation. There is a single horizontal bar chart that completely defied the 2020 crash.
And that is their education system,
Yeah, while health and wealth were plummeting, Andorra's mean years of schooling actually increased.
which is counterintuitive for a lot of people.
It is. Let's look at the numbers. In 2019, it was 11.08 years.
Okay.
And then in the darkest days of the 2020 crisis, it stepped up to 11.26 years.
And it didn't stop there. By 2023, it continued to rise to 11.61 years.
I mean, I want to use an analogy here for the listener.
Sure, go for it.
Think of a society like a sailboat. The sails are the economy, right? Catching the wind.
And very vulnerable to storms.
Exactly. When the 2020 economic and health storms hit, the wind is just ripping those sails to shreds. The boat is tipping over.
It looks like it's going to capsize.
Right. But beneath the water, hidden from view, you have the keel, this heavy, dense lead weight.
And that keel is the education system.
Yes. Even when everything above the surface is in absolute chaos, that dense weight prevents the boat from totally flipping over.
That's a really accurate way to look at human capital.
So why is education the ultimate fail-safe here?
Because by protecting that educational infrastructure, you keep your human capital engaged.
Even during a lockdown.
Especially during lockdown, they ensured that people were still learning, still upskilling.
So when the immediate danger passed.
They had this highly trained, mentally resilient population ready to rebuild the economy instantly.
They hit the ground running.
Exactly. They didn't have to retrain a depleted workforce. The workforce was already sharpened.
That makes a lot of sense. But having a highly educated population is a great baseline, right?
It is.
But if opportunity is only hoarded by a few people at the top, a nation still can't bounce back that quickly.
No, it creates too much drag. You have to look beneath the high averages to see how wealth and knowledge are actually distributed.
Which brings us to a really fascinating part of the data, the IHDI.
The Inequality Adjusted Human Development Index.
Right. Break that down for us. Why is this the litmus test?
Because high national averages often hide deep societal divides. A few billionaires can make an average income look great, but the median person is still struggling.
Right. It skews the math.
But the IHDI applies a penalty for inequality. It reveals the actual quality of development.
And when you apply that inequality penalty to Andorra...
Their global ranking actually improves.
Wait, really? Most countries drop like a stone when you adjust for inequality.
Exactly. But Andorra shoots up to 26th in the world with an IHDI of 0.837.
That is wild. I mean, let's look at the waterfall chart in the deck that shows this.
The one showing the loss of potential.
Yeah. It shows how much of a country's potential is lost to this societal friction.
Right.
In 2020, Andorra lost 10.22% of its HDI to inequality.
Which is already fairly low by global standards.
But by 2023, they dropped that friction down to just 8.32%.
They shaved off nearly 2 full percentage points of inequality during a recovery.
And the driver behind that is what the data calls the 44% miracle.
Yes, the education inequality coefficient.
I want you to picture the steep, downward-pointing red arrow on a step chart.
It's a dramatic visual.
It really is. The education inequality coefficient plummeted from 10.007 in 2021.
Down to a staggering 5.58 by 2022 and 2023.
That is basically a 44% drop in a single year. How is that even possible?
It's a profound structural shift. When you have educational inequality that fast, you're essentially doubling your usable talent tool.
Because you're bringing the bottom half up to speed.
Exactly. You're giving everyone access to that keel we talked about earlier.
So it proves that Andorra's recovery wasn't just driven by an elite few.
No, not at all. It was a broad egalitarian mobilization of the entire society.
I mean, that is just incredible. But, you know, we can't talk about eliminating societal friction without addressing The biggest divide of all.
Right. Gender parity.
Yeah. The most profound way to eliminate friction is to fully empower exactly half of your population.
And the visual for this in the data is arguably the most striking one we have.
The perfect waffle chart.
Yes.
So let's describe this to you listening. Imagine a semicircular seating chart for a parliament.
Like a traditional legislative chamber.
Exactly. Back in 1990, it was basically an ocean of gray representing men.
Just dominated by gray.
Yeah, and there was just this tiny, tiny 7.14% sliver of dark blue representing women.
A token presence, really.
But fast forward to 2023. You look at that same chart, and it is perfectly symmetrical.
It's beautiful, honestly.
Exactly 50.0% gray and exactly 50.0% dark blue.
Absolute political parity. Half the decision makers are women.
And it doesn't stop at politics, right?
Yeah.
We have this tornado chart in the deck that shows human capital.
Yes, where the female metrics actually surpass the male metrics.
Which is huge. Let's hit the numbers. In 2023, female expected years of schooling reached 14.77 years.
Compared to 14.34 for men.
Right, and female life expectancy hit 86.1 years.
Versus 82.1 for men.
So the women are more educated and living longer.
And they hold exactly half the political power.
But there's another metric here from the Gender Inequality Index, or GII, that really stood out to me.
The adolescent birth rate.
Yes. Why is that specific metric so important as a control?
Because the adolescent birth rate is a primary proxy for women's autonomy over their own lives.
That's so.
Well, when a teenager has a child, it almost inevitably derails her educational trajectory.
Right, she has to drop out.
Exactly. And that severely limits her future economic participation.
So it's a measure of systemic friction.
Yes. And if we look at Andorra, that rate dropped from 12.1 per 1,000 in 1990.
Down to just 3.48 in 2023.
Which is a massive reduction.
Yeah.
It shows absolute control over their destiny.
Okay, but I have a big question about this. Is this gender parity just a byproduct of becoming a wealthy nation? Like, they got rich, so they could afford to be progressive. Or is the parity actually the engine that drove them to become so wealthy and resilient?
The data strongly suggests it is the engine.
Really? How does that work mechanically?
Think about crisis management. When you have 50% of the population equally represented at the highest levels of decision-making, your policies become more holistic.
Because you have diverse perspectives in the room.
Exactly. A 50-50 parliament simply makes better, more resilient decisions. They invest in education, healthcare, and social safety nets.
The things that actually protect you during a massive shock like 2020.
Precisely. They didn't just protect corporate assets, they protected the human foundation.
That makes total sense. So they have wealth, health, education, and equality.
The 4 pillars are rock solid.
But historically, achieving that level of development comes with a very dark cost.
Environmental costs.
Yeah. Usually to get that rich and healthy, a nation has to just ravage the environment, burn a ton of fossil fuels.
It's the standard industrialization model.
So did Andorra follow that toxic historical trend? Did they just pump carbon into the air to fuel this V-shaped recovery?
This is where we get into the holy grail of economics. Green decoupling.
Okay, let's paint the picture of this diverging lines chart in the deck.
It's a great visual.
You have this dark blue line representing living standards, the HDI, right?
Yeah.
And it is soaring upward from 2000 to 2023.
Climbing higher and higher.
But then you have this light gray line representing CO2 production per capita.
And it's moving in the exact opposite direction.
Yes. From a high of 7.92 tons back in 2000 all the way down to 5.29 tons in 2023.
This is the decoupling phenomenon.
Define that for us. What does decoupling actually mean in this context?
It means breaking the historical curse. It's the moment a nation proves it no longer needs to burn more carbon to create more wealth.
They separate growth from emissions.
Exactly. The two lines diverge.
But let's look at the crisis years specifically, because emissions bottomed out at 4.9 tons during the 2020 crash.
Well, sure. The economy stopped, so emissions dropped.
Right. People weren't driving, businesses were closed, so a drop there is natural.
It's not an achievement. It's just a symptom of the lockdown.
Exactly. But here's the kicker. What happened when the economy roared back to life in 2021 and 2022?
Right, when they hit record wealth levels.
Did the carbon emissions spike back up to 7 or 8 tons to fuel that boom?
They did not.
Yeah.
And that is what makes this so special.
They only saw a tiny plateauing bump up to 5.29 tons.
They held the line.
I mean, that is huge. They experienced explosive economic growth without a corresponding explosion in carbon.
It proves that their transition to a low-carbon green economy is permanent.
It's structural.
Yes, it wasn't just a temporary byproduct of a recession. They literally changed how their economy operates.
So we've looked at all these individual puzzle pieces.
The V-shaped recovery, the education keel, the equality, the decoupling.
Yeah. Now it's time to snap them all together and look at Andorra's final standing on the global stage.
Because the aggregate result is really impressive.
If we look at the slope graph in the presentation, it shows this dramatic shift on the international coordinate system from 2020 to 2023.
The accelerating climb.
Yeah. The raw HDI ranking leaps from 48 up to 33.
But the inequality-adjusted ranking, the IHDI, is even better.
Right. It slices right into the global top 30, landing at number 26.
Which means they aren't just highly developed, they are highly equitable.
And the final visual in the deck is this radar chart.
A 5-vector radar chart.
Right. It maximizes its shape across education, health, wealth, gender parity, and carbon reduction.
Pushing out to the edges on every single axis.
And the presentation calls this state social immunity.
I think that's the perfect term for it.
So synthesize this for us. What is the Andorra formula for social immunity?
It comes down to a clear equation. High parity plus low carbon plus a thick educational foundation equals extreme healing speed.
Extreme healing speed. I love that phrasing.
Well, we live in an era of global black swan events, right?
Pandemics, economic crashes, climate crises.
Exactly. And the lesson here is that a country's survival isn't dictated by the sheer size of its GDP.
Because huge GDPs didn't save a lot of countries in 2020.
No, they didn't. Survival is dictated by the structural health and fairness of the society itself.
And that leads me to the final thought I want to leave you with today.
It's a really provocative question derived from the bottom of that final slide.
Yeah. You know, we usually measure a country's greatness by how high it can climb during times of peace and prosperity.
We look at their peak.
Right. But looking at the Andorra miracle, what if the true measure of a developed society isn't its highest peak at all?
What if it's something else?
What if it's the speed at which it can claw its way back to the top after a devastating fall?
Structural resilience.
Exactly. I really hope you view the world's data through this new lens of structural resilience moving forward.
It completely changes how you evaluate a nation's strength.
It really does. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a fascinating look at the numbers.
Absolutely. We will see you next time.